We'll start with the mustard C70 SD, size 4. This is a single hackle flatwing I'm tying. Absolutely fabulous saltwater pattern. Great pattern for sea trout here in Europe, and for striped bass in North America. For some reason it hasn't really taken off. There are more people using it now here in Scandinavia, but it is a truly fabulous pattern for sea trout. So firstly we'll just put our tying thread on like that. Then what we need is a white bucktail. Now the hair we need now is from the base of the bucktail because we want this to flare a little, so we'll just take a little bunch of that. Now I'm not stacking this hair, so this is for the tail, and I want it uneven behind here, so we'll just tie this in, and we want this to flare a little. That's why I've taken it from the base of the bucktail, and just go along the hook shank a little bit. This is to build up the underbody for the body braid, just like so, and then we can tighten that up and we can go back and tighten all that down. Very simple. There we go. So we can just remove all this fluff here now, this the butts of the bucktail. There we go. Just tie that down. Now we go back here. Now we want a saddle hackle like this. Now you don't want to remove any of this fluff because that's going to keep it flat. So we place it flat on top of the tail like so, and then we position it, tighten it in, and we can go along the hook shank, go along the whole body like this in front. Then we can remove that like so. Let's trim off this fluff. Excellent. We go back to the tail base, just there. Keep the hackle on top flat like that. Then we need a little piece of body braid. Again, tie this in the full length of the hook shank. Like so. Let's tie that down proper. There we are. Go back up front, and then we'll wrap the body. We want this body to be a little bit thicker at the front, so we thicken up the wraps as we go forward. You can see the body getting fatter. Perfect. And just tie that off. I can get rid of that. Now I want to spin this upside down. Now what we want is not from the base of the bucktail now, we want it from the tip. Another bunch of white. Now we don't want this to flare too much, that's why I've taken it from the tip. Okay, I'll just measure that, and we'll trim that off, and then we'll tie this in. There we are. And you can see that's not flaring at all, that's lying flat. That's good. Now what we need is a bunch, a fine bunch. Now you must always remember not to take too much bucktail. There's a bunch of golden yellow, a little bit too much here, so I'll just remove some of those fibres, remove the shorter ones. This is for the wing. We just measure the wing. That's about right. So once again, and just trim that off there. Trim it off with a little bit of an angle, it makes it easier to finish off. And this again, we don't want to flare, we want this to lie flat, so this is from the tip of the tail. And we just tie that in. Just give my thread a spin there. I can really tighten up on it. There we are. You see that's not flaring. So now a bunch of blue, again very fine, bucktail. Measure the wing again, that's about right. But before we tie that in, I'm going to use some fringe wing from Barry Ord. This is absolutely great stuff, and I'll show you why. The fringe wing is like this. The bottom part is welded. So what all you need to do is you just make a little snip like so in the weld, and then you just pull that off. Then you have this wonderful little piece of flash which is fully controllable. So we'll just tie that in there. Lies perfect every time. So, and we'll trim that off there. I throw the spin. There we are. Then we take the blue bucktail, trim that off. Again, from the top of from the tip of the bucktail, we want this to stay flat, not to spin or flare. There we are, excellent. So we just go forward, and then what I like to do here is just put a whip finish in there just to hold everything in position. Then we need peacock eye. We need some herl, and this is taken from just under the eye. This is the strongest and the best stuff. 5 or 6 strands like this. We can measure this now. That's about what I need. But before I tie that in, I want to move my tying thread back up to the top of the head. We'll just measure that out. Well, it's a little short there, I'll just pull him up. Like so. Then we'll tie this down. Right on top. You just wet your fingers and pull that down, like so. And we can trim these off. And tie them down. Okay, what I want to do now, because I'm using Dyneema, is colour my thread black. I want a black head on this. And just colour the part closest to the fly, to the actual wing. Then I take 2 jungle cock eyes, and I'll just pull them over wax like this. This will make them stronger and make them easier to tie in. One of these each side, like so. I'll just do the other one on the wax. Turn this over. Like so. And we'll tie these down. Bit more black on the thread there. We can trim these off. And finish off the head. like so. Give it a whip finish. Tighten that up. The whip finish. And remove the tying thread. Now we can give it a coat of varnish. All the way around. Should have actually 2 or 3 coats of varnish. And then what we want to do is wet this down. The whole idea of a flatwing is to create or to give the illusion of volume when it's actually a small fly, making it a big fly light to cast. And then by the magic of cinematography, this is what it looks like when you wet it down and then it's dried. And you just give it a little bit of a brush, but when it's in the water it will absolutely look superb. There is so much movement in bucktail when it's wet that it's a real attractor. And that's it, that's the finished single hackle flatwing.